3, hit it!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Caffeine for the Soul. And I am very happy to let you know about Caffeine for the Soul Press. We've launched our own little publishing company, and our first 2 books are now available at Amazons near you. And those books are It's That Simple, A User's Manual for Human Beings by Mavis Garn, and The Little Princess in the Palace of Wisdom, a children's book that I wrote, illustrated by Celia Bull. Now, today's episode is about a misunderstanding that we have culturally about where our income comes from. So most people think their income comes from their job. So I go to work and they pay me money. They may think it comes from their clients if you're a solopreneur. I work with my clients and they give me money. You might think it comes from your customers if you run a business. Well, our customers are the source of our income. But the real source of income is impact. If you don't make a difference in the lives of others, you won't have much income. If you make a huge impact in the lives of others, you have the capacity to make a huge income. Because income comes from impact. Now, if that's not obvious to you, and I know from experience that it isn't always obvious because we're used to thinking of the person who facilitates the exchange as the source of the income, then there's a formula I've taught for years in my seminars and with clients that I call the value formula. And you might want to get a piece of paper and a pen for this, but you can also play with it in your head. So here's the value formula. Scale times scope divided by replaceability equals value. So scale, how many people you're impacting with what you do, times scope, how much of an impact, how much of a difference is it making in their world, divided by replaceability. How easy is it to replace you? How many people can deliver the exact same results as you do? How many people can deliver the exact same impact that you do, make the exact same difference that you do? Will determine how much income you can have. Let's take it a step further. Let's put it to the test. And in order to do this, I want you to create a sort of a subjective scale. So I'm going to ask you to think about a few different jobs in terms of scale, scope, and replaceability. So think of a school teacher. Now, most of us would agree school teachers are an incredibly important role in society, but they're paid considerably lower than a lot of roles that people think, well, why does that person make all this money? They don't do anything. Well, let's look at it with the value formula. So on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is the entire world and 1 is one person, how many people does a school teacher impact? And in a typical year, a school teacher might impact anywhere from 20 to maybe 100 people. So you can score that however you want on your subjective scale. Now, scope, how much of an impact do they make? Well, it varies. You probably have a few teachers in your life who made a huge impact in your world. You remember them to this day. They're the first person that came to mind when you think of a great teacher or a great mentor. And then there's probably a ton of teachers who didn't make much of an impact on you at all. In fact, you can't really remember them except for maybe something they said once or something that happened in their class. So again, you can give a score from 1 to 10, where 10 is they completely change your life or the life of a student, and 1 is, you can't even remember them. And then divide that by replaceability. How many other people could make the same or similar impact? How many people could make the same difference in the lives of another? And on that one, we flip the numbers. So 1 is totally unique. They're the only person who could have that impact. 10 is anyone could have that impact. And then you find your number somewhere in between and you'll get a score. Now, I'm just playing, but when I do it, I go, the scale is pretty low. It's probably a 2. The scope, I'm going to give teachers some credit. I'm going to say this, the scope is 5. There are definitely teachers who make a real difference. But on replaceability, I'm going to go 5 as well, because in the case of most teachers, there's another teacher waiting in the wings. So again, there are exceptions to this, but on my little made-up subjective scale, so that's 2 times 5, which is 10, divided by 5, so the value number is 2. Now let's compare this with a job that most people, much as they might be excited about it and like the idea of it, they think, well, that's not an important job, like being a movie star. Well, okay, let's plug the movie star into our value formula. How many people does a movie star impact? Well, if they're a movie star, they're probably impacting a pretty high number, so it's going to be like an 8, 9, or 10. Well, what's the scope of their impact? In fairness, probably not that much, maybe a 2 or a 3. And how replaceable are they? Well, they say at any given moment in time, there are only 10 people in Hollywood who can open a movie, which means that they're a big enough star that the movie will get made, and all the people who are employed in the making of a movie, and if you've ever sat to the end and watched all the names that come up in the screen in the closing credits, you'll realize that's a lot of people whose income is dependent on this one person agreeing to do the movie. So they're usually not very replaceable. So let's run the numbers. So scale, I'm going to give them a 9. Scope, I'll settle it at 2. And replaceability, I'll make that a 2 as well, because there's probably only a few people who could do what they did. So 2 times 9 is 18, divided by 2 is 9. So remember, our school teacher came out at a 2. Our movie star comes in at a 9. That's 4 times as much. Now, movie stars actually make a lot more than 4 times as much as a teacher, but it gives you an idea of how it works. Okay, last piece. What do you do if you want to increase your income? Well, knowing where your income really comes from, that it comes from impact, there are really 3 places that you can leverage. One is the scale of your impact, reaching more people. One is the scope of your impact. The more deeply you impact somebody, the more income you'll be able to make. But if you know anything about math, or if you just play with the numbers for a little while, you'll realize the critical variable is replaceability. The more unique the impact you offer, the more income you'll be able to make. How do you make sure that your contribution is unique? There's really only one way I know of, but fortunately it's also the simplest way. Be you. When you be you, when you are willing and able to show up as yourself and not try to do things the right way and not try to do them the way other people who've been successful do them, but do them the way that you do them. Do them the way that it occurs to you. Then you become an irreplaceable resource. You become, at the very least, a unique resource. And so as you're increasing the scale, reaching more people, as you're increasing the scope, impacting people at deeper and deeper levels with your product or service, the more you're willing to be yourself, the higher your level of potential income. Have fun, learn heaps, happy exploring, and I'll talk with you soon.